All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA props video. Going to be breaking down the top prop bets for the 3-game slate on Tuesday. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's start with the first game, which is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Indiana Pacers. Looking at this game, it is going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game at 229 is what the over and under is set at for this game, which is higher than the first game. The Pacers are going to be favored by 4 points. Now, what we're going to see here is that game total to me is telling me that Lillard is probably going to play in this game. And I think some of the expectations are going to be that he does end up playing in this. Now, if he does end up playing in this game, he could end up having limited minutes. And that is the biggest and most difficult part about predicting the Bucks and really just this whole game in general. So that is a tough part, especially as I'm recording this video. It is worth calling out as well. Lillard against the Pacers has had 2 really good games and 2 really kind of bad games as well. And so you don't exactly know whether or not he's going to show up in this game or even going to be ready to go in this game. He's trying to return from conditioning. Now, either way, there is one bet that I do like a decent amount in this game for the Milwaukee Bucks. And that's going to be with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So looking at it, guys, he is a player that actually does benefit with Lillard on the court, okay? His usage actually goes up slightly. His fantasy points total goes down a little bit if you guys are placing some fantasy score bets tomorrow when those are available. But the bets that I like are really his rebounds, okay? So he actually averages 1.2 more rebounds per 36 with Lillard on the court, okay? And chances are he's actually going to end up getting more minutes than that. He had 38 minutes in that last game as well. So now in 5 games against the Pacers thus far this season, he's gotten to over 11.5 rebounds in 3 of those games. Now you tack on Lillard potentially being on the court as well. That should help Giannis to be able to get to over 11.5 rebounds. Now the issue with that bet is the only spot where we can find it, PrizePicks has already bumped it up, it's going to be on Underdog at 11.5 rebounds. Okay, that's kind of the issue. We're going to take a slight payout decrease, which I don't exactly love doing. If you guys want to place this bet on PrizePicks at 12, knowing that it has a high likelihood to be a push, you could end up doing that. And then if we just kind of look at the game 1 outcome, if you guys were watching it, you'd notice probably the Bucks just giving up a bunch of open 3-pointers and just shots in general, but mostly open 3-pointers that the Pacers were able to convert on. Now, if the Bucks kind of tighten things up a little bit defensively and the Pacers are forced to make, more contested 3-pointers, their 3-point percentage could actually end up going down. They shot 38%, which to me is actually a little bit shocking looking at this. The biggest takeaway from that game was the Bucks just couldn't hit an open shot. That was the biggest issue. No one was making their open shots. It was basically Giannis, Kevin Porter Jr., and then Gary Trent Jr. got things going as well. No one else showed up in that game for the Bucks. They're just absolutely terrible from the 3-point range. And I saw at least 7 open 3-pointers. And so that kind of goes hand in hand. If the Pacers are maybe not going to be making as many 3-pointers, or even still just shooting basically the same amount of 3-pointers and making them the same amount, then that should still help Giannis to be able to get to the over of 11.5 rebounds. And so we do look at the line at 12 rebounds on PrizePicks, guys. Is worth calling out. The under is slightly favored there. It's about a 51% likelihood to hit. He is projected, though, however, to get 39 minutes. So again, adjusting for the Lillard being on the court factor and just everything else across the board, like you can see why PrizePicks actually ended up upping this to 12. It's just that good of a bet on paper. I think I still would be okay betting on him to get to over 12. Now, if you guys want to maybe try to get to a plus bet, if you guys are betting on a more traditional sports book, I think I'd be okay with that. BetMGM has it at plus 120. That'd probably be the spot that you would want to get to there with Giannis. Now, from there, we'll take a peek at some of the other prop bets that we were getting. We need to talk about the bigs for Milwaukee. So Brook Lopez really did not do anything in the whole first half. None of the bigs actually did anything. Bobby Portis got a bunch of looks that he just missed, pretty open shots that he just ended up missing. Kyle Kuzma, I literally did not see on the court. Literally, of course I saw, but literally if you told me that he didn't play, I'd have been like, oh, okay. Makes sense. He was just a ghost out there. He wasn't even moving at all. There's 2 possessions late in the third quarter where I'm like, oh my goodness, Kyle Kuzma cut to the basket and forced a shot up. It was weird. Okay, he didn't play that many minutes as well. Chances are he could get 24 minutes as well. And so that is a very interesting thing. He could be limited in those minutes as well. And so we're going to see that his under 10.5 points is an interesting line. Now maybe they actually try to get him going right away. Okay. And that's an interesting thought, is that they might need to get him going. He was pretty poor defensively. I think that might be a thing. They just can't play him. And so either you get him going, get him hot shooting the basketball early, or he's just going to continue. And so for me, like, either you're betting Kuzma for like over his points in the first quarter, or this under is somewhat appealing there of under 10.5. Now, one of these two you would think would have to get going, or Bobby Portis, okay? And so what's interesting, that all the bets that we're getting for the Bucks, we're actually being told to bet the under. And what's interesting with it is I could somewhat see it. You look at Brook Lopez, guys, his per 36 production with Damian Lillard on the court is 13.1 points per 36. And he is someone that could be limited minutes-wise as well, only projected to get 28 minutes. Okay, and he's actually the player that like takes the biggest hit with Lillard on the court. Okay, so this is one of those spots where really, if we get news that Lillard's inactive, try to get to Brook Lopez for over his 11.5 points. If we get news that Lillard is going to be active, then this is somewhat of appealing there as well. Then, yeah, guys, Bobby Portis was just terrible. One of those three you would just think is going to have a better game. Just, it's tough to imagine those three not having a good game again. And if they don't, then yeah, the Bucks are probably going to have a tough time in that game as well. Bobby had the looks. He just wasn't converting on them. And I really wish we were getting Kevin Porter Jr. prop bets again. Basically, my only good call from Saturday was talking about Kevin Porter Jr. And that's just because the Pacers ended up just going off. But like, Kevin Porter Jr. did end up getting more run, which is why I thought would be something that would occur. I actually thought he was going to be starting coming out of the second half in that game, and that did not occur. Just, that's the natural move. He's a little bit of a better defender than Ryan Rollins. Now, with Lillard being back, you do wonder what his minutes are going to be like. I think we can actually lock in 25. And what's interesting, guys, he like went 2 for 7 and 0 for 2 from 3. Like, he didn't even shoot the basketball well. He was able to get to the rim and draw some fouls. Had a very solid game overall, though. Got a steal, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. And so he is someone that I do think is just, he's been playing well. I think he's going to continue to play well. Okay, and then we go ahead and get into the Pacers. So I will say I have a tough time really liking any of the bets that we're getting for the Pacers, because that game in round 1 was just a weird game, right? It was a 5.5 point spread. The Bucks they got blown out, but they almost came back. Like, AJ Green had a chance, like 2 possessions in a row to put the game within like 9 or 8, which really would have felt like the momentum would have been gone. And then they even had another possession where they ended up forcing a 3-ball as well to again have that chance. And so if you convert maybe 2 baskets there, it changes. I feel like that third to fourth quarter that we saw is really what we should be expecting for this series. Maybe the Bucks were just a little bit slower to start. And so with that, I just don't necessarily really want to be targeting any of the bets that we are getting for the Pacers. And it's not like we have any that are popping up as like must bets as well. Benedict Mathurin for under his points, rebounds, and assists is actually an okay one. The thing I like is that we're getting all red here for this bet. So all the data that we have coming in is already naturally telling us to bet it on his unders. And so that could be a bet that I think we could end up seeing ourselves getting to. Now, it's weird. He played a fine game, but he wasn't that noticeable as well. It was very much the Siakam and Miles Turner show, which maybe the Bucks adjust some things defensively, a.k.a. Ryan Rollins is not on the court, which then would actually force Benedict Mathurin into more of a role, right? That's an adjustment I would make. All right, Giannis, go on Siakam. Don't let him score. Okay, Brook, let's step up and let's actually play some defense against Miles Turner. If we get beat by Benedict Mathurin, we get beat by Benedict Mathurin. So that's the slight adjustment. Then kind of another interesting one is the line that we're getting from Miles Turner with his 6.5 rebounds. Okay, we're actually being told that the over is a decent bet here, guys. About a 52% likelihood. So again, typically not a bet that we're even targeting for PrizePicks or Underdog because it's under that 54% threshold. But across the board, it's decent. He's projected to get 33 minutes in this game. So wouldn't be too shocking to see him get the over, but not a bet that we need. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get on into the next game. All right, so the next game is going to be OKC versus Memphis. This is going to be a game that is also going to be a little bit difficult to bet on just because of the game spread. Okay, 14.5 points, the point differential, and then the over and under is still set at 29, so decently high scoring game there. Now, what makes it difficult is that if this game is going to end up being a blowout, now it's not going to end up being a blowout as fast as that previous game was most likely. Like, SGA only had 23 minutes, but let's just say he only gets 30 minutes in this game because it's a blowout in the fourth quarter. That's where it does get difficult. Like, that's typically the best part about the playoffs, is that we don't have to worry about players losing minutes because of blowouts, okay? And so that is a tough wrinkle that we have in this game. Now, a bet that I do find interesting, again, not necessarily for a PrizePicks or Underdog bet, would be Isaiah Hartenstein for over his points and assists line. And this is mostly due to the matchup. Gets a pretty good matchup against Memphis. The DVP adjustment here. So if you adjust it for the matchup, still with his projected minutes, which is about 26, he only got like 21 minutes last game. So again, it's tough with the blowout potential. If you adjust it for that, about 14.5 there, which is a good adjustment, I would say. And we are getting some differing lines coming in on sportsbooks with this one. Okay, so some are favoring the over or almost trying to favor the over. And then others are kind of telling us to bet the under pretty heavily. And so I do think that that's a better traditional bet for the over. And then another bet that I do think is worth calling out as well is Aaron Wiggins with his points. Just because on some sites we are getting him at 10.5. Bet Rivers and Fliff are both giving us his line at 10.5. Heavily favoring the under there, don't get me wrong. But some sites are kind of telling, I mean, FanDuel has it as minus 130 for the under at 10.5. DraftKings minus 130 for the over at 9.5. This is one just, playing on PrizePicks a lot NBA-wise. I do expect this bet to actually get bumped up. And this is one of those things where maybe it does end up being a blow and it gets a little bit more run for us. That'd be nice. But yeah, I do think the books are actually good. PrizePicks will probably end up bumping, is my thought. And then from there, just really the rest of the bets that we are getting here for OKC, I just feel like we'd be forcing them a little bit too much and just no real reason to go out of our way. I would say force any bets, especially for PrizePicks or Underdog purposes. Now we'll go ahead and jump on into the other side of this game. Also going to be tougher to predict with the potential blowout, the likely. And really just looking at Memphis, guys, we really only have two bets that we could even consider for like PrizePicks or Underdog purposes. We got Zach Edey for under his rebounds of 11.5, which if you look at the DVP adjustment, this is actually a pretty good spot for him. Every other data point is actually telling us to bet the over. So again, this is maybe one of those spots where it's actually just a better traditional sportsbook bet to be betting on the over rather than the under on PrizePicks or Underdog, just because the payouts adjusted for it. You're actually going to get a benefit from taking on that risk. And then same thing with Santi Aldama here as well. I don't hate his over 5.5 rebounds, but actually not something I think we need to go crazy with. Only 19 minutes in that game against OKC. It does average 25, is projected to get 25. So if he gets that, maybe gets a couple more, but again, probably feels like a little bit too much. And so now we go ahead and jump on into the night game. We got the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the LA Lakers. Okay, so the Lakers are going to be 5.5 point favorites in this game, but it is projected to be a pretty low scoring game at 210 is what the over and under is set. So very low scoring game. Now with the Lakers being favored to win by 5.5 points, 4.5 points, I think the biggest takeaway that we're seeing with the Vegas line is that the Minnesota Timberwolves are not going to shoot 50% from three-ball range again. I mean, they shot 42 three balls and a ton of three balls. It's been this NBA's, but they're not going to shoot 50%. It's just not going to happen. Adjust it to more of the norm. Let's even put them down to 40%. Then it'd probably have to be a little bit of that, but you can kind of see that is a clear outlier. It's not a sustainable thing, and so that should get corrected. And so with that thought process is how we should go about placing. Now, I will say a bet that I do like still for and over is actually looking at Dante DiVincenzo to get over 13.5 points and rebounds. He is someone that in that game, he ended up gaining about 25 minutes, which is about his season norm, but he is projected to get 27 minutes in this game. So that would suggest maybe getting a slight uptick in his playoff minutes. And at this line here of 13.5, he has a really good season hit rate. Okay, so he's gotten the over 65% of the time on the season. 80% over the past 20 games, and you could end up just getting to his points, rebounds, and assists line. That's a little bit better once we get that out. Both those two are pretty good ones. Now, I don't think we need to go crazy with that, but it is one of the better ones I would say that I like personally. Again, just looking across the board, if he gets that increase in minutes, I think we'd be fine getting to that. And so from there, we'll take a look at the other prop bets that we are getting here for Minnesota. Which other ones are popping up as decent ones? Julius Randle to get under his rebounds and assists here of 11.5. Very interesting one. About a 52% likely to hit. Don't exactly love that. I will say the role that Rudy Gobert played in that game a couple nights ago was interesting. Basically didn't need to do anything because everyone was making threes. So it's pretty much one, he wasn't getting rebounds. He wasn't asking rebounds because he didn't need to. And because of that, he's not kicking any passes out as well. Maybe some second opportunities as well. And so I don't know if I necessarily want to target this one. And using the color coding that we have here, all these ones where we're being told to bet the unders where it's all green, probably not touching those. Now, maybe Rudy Gobert for over his points. And again, just going through the motions. If Minnesota is not hitting 50% of their threes, and they're still shooting that many, there's going to be a couple of rebounds to go, which then leads to Rudy Gobert actually being involved in the game plan. And you look at the bigs that the Lakers have, that is a weakness for them. You could see Gobert then making a difference. I don't want to bet on Rudy Gobert, though. I just don't. But I did want to call that one 52% likely to hit. Not terrible. Anthony Edwards for under. I don't need to get there. I don't. Now, Naz Reid finally having a good game was pretty darn refreshing. He's been kind of an annoying piece. He's someone that I thought would step up in the absence of Karl-Anthony Towns this year, maybe even take another step like he did last year. And that just hasn't happened, but he's still playing some good basketball, but not someone we need to go out of our way to target. And so with that, guys, just the Dante DiVincenzo one is one that I decently like. And then I think we just kind of stay away. So let's go ahead and jump on into the Lakers now. And I will say one of the more annoying lines that we are not getting would be Luka and his rebounds. And I'm just calling this out because I do think it's an interesting talking point. Okay. So Luka for under 8.5 rebounds, which is kind of the standard line right now, would be an interesting one. Okay. The books are actually giving him -140 to get over 8.5 rebounds. And so betting on his under, season wise, only gets the over 37% of the time over the last 20 games, 25% of the time. Now against Minnesota, which is kind of surprising because they do run out some, multiple bigs, is that he has gotten the over 42 times. So kind of interesting there in that regard. But I do think this could be a good traditional sports bet if you guys are just looking at kind of hit rates. And then a pretty dumb line that we were getting is Jackson Hayes as a goblin, but I was really hoping that this would be a standard bet because you can't really rely on the minutes to be there, but he does have a really good season hit rate and also an opponent hit rate for this. Against Minnesota, he gets the over 91% of the time, and over the past 20 games has gotten the over 90% of the time as well. On the season, only 75%. So I guess I get why it's a goblin, but that's kind of the annoyance there. And then you're just betting on, all right, is he going to play more than 10 minutes? And that's a tough ask. And so then we look at some of the other bets that we are getting, guys. No big prop line differences. I think that's a main thing that we should call out is, between PrizePicks and Underdog, we are seeing just all the lines are pretty much the same across the board. Hachimura for under his points and rebounds is the best, and that's only 8% likely to hit. So again, not really a bet that we need to be going out of our way to target. So guys, that's going to do it for the video. I'm going to go ahead and get into the bet of the day. But before I do that, let's get into the 9to5 website, guys. So what you just saw was the 9to5 NBA cheat sheet, which is included in the 9to5 membership, which is available for just $10 a month. What also is included in that is tools like fantasy golf tools, as well as PrizePicks and Underdog prop betting tools. So all that's included for just $10 a month. If you guys are interested in accessing that, head on over to the pricings and plans tab. You guys can sign up for. All right, so getting into the bet of the day, I do want to say I probably will be mostly waiting until we get more fantasy score prop bets for PrizePicks Underdog specifically. Obviously, I'm doing the game-by-game breakdown for you people that are maybe betting on more traditional sportsbooks, just don't want to bet on fantasy score prop bets or don't even have access to those. Typically, those are going to be our best edges. But I do want to give you guys, kind of what the two best prop bets are. Again, I do like this Giannis bet a little bit better on Underdog, where they're discounting the payout a little bit, but I do like betting on him more to get over 11.5 rebounds rather than 12, because at this value, I do think there's a good chance that this ends up being a push. Then Aaron Wiggins for over 9.5 points. I do think that there's a good chance this does get bumped up to 10, just knowing how PrizePicks does things. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you being here. Good luck with all your bets tomorrow in the NBA. Thanks for watching. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.